whole of human history is full of secrets and mysteries. In fact, even now, in the age of science and technology, our whole world order is causing thousands of questions, many of which cannot be fully answered by scientists. Time Puzzle Crew tries to uncover some of those mysteries surrounding the mysterious places of Kazakhstan.
Silent corridors made people listen tensely, waiting to hear steps. Especially if those are the corridors of a building where condemned to death people are waiting for an executioner who came to take away the last hope to see the sunlight again. And realizing that the execution will be as violent as times makes the waiting even more suspenseful. Slow cutting off of hands with following blindness. The terrible fate of the architect, fact or fiction? He was blinded. His arm and leg were cut off. Nobody's seen this. That's why we don't have any information, neither in history nor in archives. We know only his name, Konpik. Who actually built Zharkent Mosque? Unfortunately, there are no details about the architect. I couldn't find anything in the archives. What role in this story famous merchant Vali Yuldashev played? Vali Akhun Yuldashev had already had the status of an honorary citizen of the town of Zharkent, and he received official permission for the construction of this mosque. Merchant Vali Yuldashev decided to build an unusual mosque. To this end, he invited the Chinese architect named Konpik. The identity and fate of the architect are the biggest mysteries of this story. The riddle in his life, I was interested in the fact that indeed how could a person create such a structure without one nail in the selection of material? After all, it was so hard to deliver it in those years when the mosque was built. What has interested me? That is the fate of the carpenter. It just cuts off. Interesting. Zharkent Mosque is a unique monument of wooden architecture. Building, it mixes the style of Muslim and Chinese architecture. Built in the 19th century, it is not only the decoration of the city of Zharkent, but also one of the most mysterious buildings in Kazakhstan. All this because of the exotic sky-style unique method of construction and mysterious rumors about the terrible fate of its creator. On Muslim architectural structures too there could be masters' names somewhere. In some places it is more than acceptable, it fits. Why do we know, for example, Samarkand places of worship, there are the name of the master inscribed? We know who built these structures. The main hall of Zharkent Mosque can accommodate up to 8,000 believers, and the total area of the mosque is 28 to 54 meters. Height of 14.5, the minaret reaches 19 meters. The interior is decorated with the traditional Arabic script using national ornaments. The northeastern side of the mosque, there is a small courtyard, and madrasas are in the southern part. But the main feature of this monument of architecture is unbelievable composition of canonical sky Islamic decor with typical Chinese patterns and ornaments. The architect used the style which later will be called Muslim Chinese style. Unfortunately, there are no details about the architect. I didn't find anything about him in the archives. The archives basically states that he received permission. The few testimonies about the construction of the mosque which were able to find by the crew of the Time Puzzle in the archives contained only the name of the creator of the architectural marvel, Chinese Konpik. A legend says that after finishing the construction, he was subjected to a painful punishment. Already 2,000 years ago, Chinese architects grasped the art of construction of building from special bricks that can last for centuries. For thousands of years, the architects of China mastered the technology of construction of wooden structures. Not surprisingly, that the skill of Chinese architects were highly valued. But the interesting fact that the history didn't manage to save the names of these craftsmen, and their fates are mostly unknown. That's why the personality of Con Pic kindles our interest, since he is one of the few representatives of this art whose name is remembered today.
What
they said about the architect, and I had read it myself, that the mosque was built by a Chinese guy, a Chinese architect with the name Con Pic. They also mentioned that he was executed for constructing this building. Allegedly, upon coming back to China, he was executed for the beauty of the mosque. They said different things about him, that his eyes were poked out, that his arms and legs were cut off. But these are all legends. We were not able to find anything about his fate either in archives or in other open sources. We just know his name, Con Pic. Watch right now. What could cause the death of Con Pic? But it could be considered as giving away the secrets of the national art in a foreign culture. He probably could have been executed. I do not know exactly if it could serve as a reason for this. Are there any similar buildings in the world? It's a mosque. It is a portal of the mosque, which was built in Kuljan. Here is the three-tiered minaret. Incredible investigations in the time puzzle. To decorate the mosque, artists use sayings made in calligraphic Arabic script and patterns of flowers. But let's take a closer look. History knows many examples when the authors of unique buildings were executed in order that they cannot repeat this experience, leaving the buildings that they created unique. Cruel time required cruel humans, and beauty demanded sacrifices. Thus, according to legend, Tsar Ivan the Terrible blinded the architect Ivan Bama, who built the Cathedral of the Intersection of the Holy Virgin in Moscow. Also featuring with some discharge of the accepted canons of Christianity and popularity, known as Saint Basil's Cathedral. At all times, Chinese people were distinguished by the fact that they jealously guarded their secrets from strangers. These include the production of gunpowder, silk, the famous Chinese porcelain, and it is possible that some features of the building. The death penalty was the sentence for disclosure of these secrets. Carpenter was from China. He was the craftsman who built this building, the mosque. He created this mosque. His skill, his ability, and his soul that he wanted to express, he put his heart and soul into construction of this mosque. The initiator of the construction of a mosque in Zharkent was Vali Akun Yuldashev, a large Uyghur man of fortune, philanthropist, and talented merchant. Because Vali Yuldashev lived in Kulja before, he had enough money. He also opened a madrasa, a school he gave largely to charity. Because he was a rich person helping all peoples, he helped all the people. He met Konpik. The Council of Elders of Zharkent determined the place of construction of the mosque. Of course, there was a need to find craftsmen and building materials for the construction. After several discussions, it was decided to send a delegation to China, the town of Kulja. There Yuldashev found and invited Chinese architect to build Zharkent Mosque. Archival documents say that the reason for choosing Konpik refers to the fact that Vali Yuldashev saw previous works of the architect, the mosque that was built in Kulja in the middle of the 19th century. However, it was destroyed before our days. It's a mosque. It is a portal of the mosque which was built in Kulja. Here is the three-tiered minaret. This is Zharkent Mosque. Here you can see a piece of pagoda, two-tiered pagoda. Well, I think he chose the architect probably because he liked his works of this architect. If he had seen them in Kulja, they could impress him. To decorate the mosque, artists use sayings made in calligraphic Arabic script and patterns of flowers. But let's take a closer look. Islamic religion forbids depicting of animals, especially in religious buildings. That's why the images here are stylized figures. Rules of religious buildings at all times have been subject to strict laws, the disregard of which could result as a death of the innovator. The history of architecture is replete with such examples. The canons of Islam forbid the use of images of living creatures, especially in the decoration of religious buildings. But as we see here, the artist-designer chose to play on slippery ground. There is such well-known fact that the Uyghurs, they were not fanatical Muslims. Therefore, there are lots of such inconsistencies in the traditional culture of the Uyghurs and respectively in the artistic culture too. Maybe these outrageous liberties caused the terrible massacre of Konpik. Or were there other reasons for the death of the architect? To find out, we turn to those who, like us, are trying to learn the details of this mysterious story. How much, in fact, costed the mosque construction? Thus, by properly organized collections, mostly in the form of donations, he received much more money than to start a construction. Contradictory personality of Vali Akun Yuldashev. In order to atone for his many sins, Vali Akun conceived to build a mosque in Zharkent. But again, a merchant nature prevailed. He ordered two Taranchian Dungans to collect a large amount of money in those days. Konpik's death, fact or fiction? I think that, if he was executed here, Have you heard that he was executed here? It can cause an international scandal, because he was the architect of China.
Я представляю этнокультурный русский центр Панфиловского района.
I represent the Russian ethno-cultural center of Panfilov district.
Панфиловского района. С 1983
Working in the state archive of Panfilov district from 1983 to 2007, I found documents about development, about the construction of Zharkent Mosque.
Жаркентская мечеть является одним из
Zharkent Mosque is one of the oldest building structures.
материал.
The material was collected on the basis of a request to the regional state archives. The date of its construction is more interesting.
Интересен о его строительстве. Но того, что мы хотели узнать,
But what we wanted to know about Zharkent Mosque, about a carpenter's fate who built the mosque, we had to do a lot of requests, but we did not find the answers.
не нашли.
Вот, кстати, об архивных документах.
By the way, about the archival documents that relate to this mosque,
Такое впечатление создалось, что
generally I get the impression that the Republican archives in Kazakhstan contain only a small part of these documents,
документов, потому что там
because there are so many detailed documents pertaining to much less interesting buildings, and yet the mosque, it is, I think, significant architectural object, and there must be more information about it.
я думаю, что заметный архитектурный объект был, и должно было
I have the impression that some of the documents are not stored in our archives,
документов все-таки хранится не в нашем архиве, а
and they can be somewhere in St. Petersburg, maybe somewhere in Tashkent, in Central Asia.
в Центральной Азии.
But researchers have been able to find out something. These are some of the documents of the mid-80s of the last century that were written from the words of the descendants of members of the mosque construction. And it says that the construction of the building costed 300,000 gold rubles. These are colossal means at the time.
В архиве нет этой цифры, не указано.
The archive doesn't have this figure, but I think that a considerable amount of money had been spent.
Мечеть, как я уже говорил, не
Therefore, the mosque, as I have said, not only for the state means, but mainly for account of Vali Akun Yuldashev was built.
строительство собирали.
However, members Taranchi community also collected money for its construction.
Архивные документы гласят,
Archival documents read as follows. With the start of construction 1884, he toured the newly created villages of settlers of future Zharkent County and urged settlers, in the name of God, to procure lumber, make donations. Thus, by properly organized collections, mostly in the form of donations, he received much more money than to start a construction. Where disappeared the funds that wasn't spent for the construction of the temple? It makes us to go back to the personality of Vali Akun Yuldashev, not only public figure of the time, but also known for his talent of merchant.
Соборную мечеть в Жаркенте, она была построена на
The Mosque of Zharkent was built by order and for account of Semirechynsk first guild merchant, millionaire, philanthropist, Uyghur richman Vali Akun Yuldashev.
основного бая Вали Акуна Юлдашева. Поэтому в народе она и носит название мечети Вали Акун.
Therefore, the mosque is named after Vali Akun.
Он уже имел статус
Vali Akun Yuldashev already had the status of honorary citizen of the city of Zharkent, and he got official permission to build this mosque.
мечети.
Without a doubt, one of the central figures of our history is Vali Akun Yuldashev. Large merchant, the merchant of the First Guild. He had a bright talent of diplomacy. He was present personally at the coronation of the last Russian Emperor, Nicholas II, and he was awarded with high honors not only in Tsarist Russia, but also in China. However, the history doesn't usually paint portraits of its children only white or black colors. And in the case of the Vali Akun, there is another version regarding the identity of the merchant. Here are some other opinions published in the Express newspaper of July the 8th, 2011. In particular, there is one of the most popular stories of the century characterizing Yuldashev's personality during his life in Kulja, where he received a contract for the supply of food standing in the city of Russian military garrison. As the 20 carts turned into a few hundred, went quartermasters sitting on the porch and counted the passing carts, and those carts were going around the square again and again, drove past controllers. Valyakun realized that while the day of departure of troops will be known, it will be possible to obtain a few rubles for the hundreds of non-existent supply and share with quartermasters. And this easy earnings of big money lasted for about 2 months, and when the final day of departure finally was appointed, Valyakun earned enough money not only to sign the work contract, but also to immediately start a large business in Zharkent, as recollected by Jins. The investigation carried out by the author of this article, the journalist Eric Albakirov, also mentioned the construction of the mosque. Here new details appear, and they don't match with the archives. In order to atone for his many sins, Valyakun conceived to build a mosque in Zharkent. But again, a merchant nature prevailed. He ordered two Taranchian Dungans to collect a large amount of money in those days. 10,000 rubles.
Вот во всех архивных документах она названа Таранчинской.
In all the archival documents, it is named Taranchi. Taranchi are Uyghurs native of Kulja Edge.
Сведения о том, что мусульмане города Джаркента, которые были другой.
In these archival documents, there is evidence that the Muslims of Zharkent, who were of other ethnic origin, even Kashkalik Uyghurs, natives of Kashgar oasis, they prayed in other mosques, built at the expense of their own.
Сообществ. То есть это вот мечеть Яркентская, Жаркентская.
And Zharkent Mosque belonged to Taranchi. It was Taranchi Uyghur Mosque. As shown by the investigation conducted by the journalist and stored historical data, amount that has been collected to build a mosque was much higher than the actual need. The nature of Yuldashev is a classic example of a merchant of that time, who put his personal gain in the first place, even in such good work like the temple buildings. Another circumstance combines with these facts in a strange way. The archives refer to the testimony of one witness who tells about the departure of Mukan, or sage, it's how the workers respectfully called Konpik. And the witness said that they were finishing the gates of the mosque after the sudden departure of Konpik. And what happened next? It is just dark legends of terrible execution of an architect. But perhaps this is just fiction of unknown authors.
Я думаю, что, знаете, если его казнили, вы...
I think that, you know, if he was executed here, have you heard that he was executed here?
Это, извините меня,
It can cause an international scandal because he was the architect of China.
архитектор Китая.
As we know, there were no international scandals associated with the death of the distinguished Chinese architect in Zharkent in late 1890s. Perhaps Konpik aged in one of the provinces in China, no longer building similar structures and having lived peacefully on the earnings from the construction of the mosque. And the story about his execution is just a beautiful legend, designed to maintain interest in an amazing building and excite the imagination of children. But on the other hand, legends are not born from scratch. The mysterious Chinese architect built his incredible creation and disappeared into the mists of history. crew conducted a thorough investigation, the threads of which are often nipped in the maze of little surviving archives. However, we have learned with the maximum precision that Zharkent Mosque was built in the late 90s of the 19th century, finished with its construction technology and studied the exotic features of finish and decor. But the identity of the master who built this masterpiece of architecture remains another mystery. It was the time puzzle, and me, Sergei Alexeyanak.